Welcome to Behind the Muscle podcast. Today's guest is a newly crowned IFBB Pro. Today's guest is Justin Jacoby. Justin, welcome back to the podcast, my man.
Thanks, Quentin. It's good to be back.
For sure. So before you and I kind of just chop it up a little bit, Justin, for all of you who are first-time listeners, viewers of Behind the Muscle or coming back again, I just want to let you know that Justin has been on the podcast before. We covered his story kind of per the usual of Behind the Muscle podcast. So because Justin had a very successful weekend this last weekend at Nationals, we're just going to kind of chop it up. I'm going to let him kind of talk about this prep this past weekend. But if you do want to hear the full kind of episode of Justin's story, just go back into the podcast episodes and you can find that. So Justin, I just want you to kind of talk about a little bit in regards to your prep. How did it go? Maybe some of the ups, some of the downs. And then once you kind of finish up with that, I'll ask you a couple of questions about this past weekend. Okay?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, the prep itself really didn't have any speed bumps, to be perfectly honest with you. Everything that we expected to happen would happen. My body reacted exactly how we pretty much planned and wanted it to each time that we made any adjustments. And to be honest with you, Matt and I don't do a ton of changes. My body will start to change once I start basically pushing it in the right direction. So, so a slight cardio change or a slight diet change or a slight protocol change, all of a sudden then starts to yield some big results and, some larger visual results for us. So when we did the regional 4 weeks out from Nationals, I weighed in at night of that show at around 188.8, I believe. So my morning wake up weight was probably 186 or something like that, 186 and change. Because I never would usually fluctuate all that much, from the morning to the night, especially the day before a show with, having water reduced and doing the water manipulations and everything, trying to dry out. So I was in probably the close condition at that show as I was at my previous show in 2019 when I competed at USA's as a middleweight, and I weighed in at 175 on the dot in 2019. So that was about 13 pounds or so difference. Both were afternoon weigh-ins too. So it wasn't one was an afternoon weigh-in and one was fresh out of bed weigh-in. So I clearly put on size. There was muscle that was put on. Now, was there a ton of muscle put on in the 2 years? No. I mean, I would have liked there to be more, and that's just me needing to be more dedicated in the off season, which now that I'm a professional, I will be treating myself a lot more like a professional, be holding myself accountable like a professional. So I'm just going to have to get better, honestly. So anyway, we did that and we knew that we could get a lot tighter. That was not the most conditioned that I've ever been. So I knew I had it in me and I knew we could push harder for sure. And it was 3 weeks out from Nationals. I posed for Matt in person. And he looked at me and he kind of grabbed my ass cheek and with his thumb to feel how much fat was there. And he was like, we have stuff we can lose. And I was like, okay. And he told me basically, he's like, if I get you to this body weight, I'm pulling you down the middles. He's like, I can tell you that right now. And so for all of an hour, my pride was in the way and I was bummed because I was I had thought I wanted to be a light heavyweight so badly. And when I stepped out of my own way and let Matt just do his thing and drive this, this bus the way that we wanted it to, I was like, if this was what makes me the most competitive to win, then that's what I'm going to do. And, we made some changes and my body just responded so quickly. The weight started to come off easy. My body was changing visually, left and right. I never really was losing a bunch of fullness. I didn't lose any tissue. I can guarantee that from the regional to Nationals. Maybe a little bit of volume to the muscle, but actual tissue, no. So we had a great look at Nationals. That's definitely the best that I've ever been, the most complete top to bottom as far as being full on stage while also really dry, very conditioned. I listened to the commentating and it was really cool because Neil Hill was commentating a little bit because Yamamoto was the title sponsor. And he kept calling my number and said, like, he's like, that's pro level conditioning. And that was like really cool and eye opening to hear, because I was like, wow, that's awesome. Like Neil Hill just said that I have pro level conditioning. And so like that was like a small moral victory just right there. I mean, the guy coaches Flex Lewis, and I think I mentioned this on the other podcast. Flex Lewis was like one of the first bodybuilders I saw on social media and on YouTube. And I like was like, man, I want to look like that. So that like it just kind of comes full circle. And Matt Jansen is, you know, close with those guys. So like it came full circle on both sides. So that was really cool. Also too, so I had 2 athletes compete at nationals too. I had a wellness girl, Crystal Barrett, who did her first national show. She looked amazing. And we just needed a little bit more tissue. Like the wellness girls at nationals are another level. So, you know, like one more off season for her, and I think she's going to be really competitive. And then I actually was lucky enough to earn my first pro card as a coach. I coached Jordan Wise, who won the welterweight class, prepped him all the way through 20 plus week prep. It looked amazing. I told him at like 16 weeks out, I said, if we can make welters, you will win nationals. And I manifested it all the way through. I think I believed it a lot, even more than he did. And so I'm backstage in line, ready to go on stage for like the initial first groups of middles. And he's out there in first call out. And I'm like, I ran up to the TV because they're streaming it. I see him right in the middle, and they're comparing him to the other guy. They're split center because there's 6-person call outs. There's no one that's actually in the box. And I'm like, he's way sharper than that guy. He's not giving up any muscle. I'm screaming back there. I'm like standing over Gary Udit's shoulder, like making a fool of myself because I'm so excited. I was like a proud dad. And then he comes off stage, and I see him. He walks right up to me, and I just went, boom. I punched him right in the chest. And I was like, that's what I'm talking about. And like he did the same thing back to me. I gave him a hug. At that point, I didn't even care. I was like, I probably just ruined my oil, but who cares? Like I was more excited, and I cried for him. Where when they called my name and when I won at finals, I didn't cry or anything. Like, I mean, it was such a weight off my shoulder. Yes. And it was an amazing feeling, but like, I was way more excited for my athlete. And so, because I also know like my ceiling as a coach is so much higher than my ceiling is as an athlete. So I was just ecstatic. So got the first one out of the way. And it was really special to share it with him in the same weekend that I was competing, because we did everything together. Like we went and did check-ins together. We went to tanning together. We went and we ate our meals at the same time. We would pose. I would have him pose for me an hour after his meal, and then I would pose for Matt an hour after my meal. And we all basically just hung out all in the same room. We all were on the same floor. It was just perfect. Like we had the stars aligned. We couldn't have asked for any more of like a perfect scenario. So I mean, that's kind of the weekend in a nutshell. And then, you know, Justin Shire went pro, another one of Camp Jansen athletes, one of Matt's guys in the heavyweight class. Super nice guy, probably one of the nicest guys I've ever met. Matt Berzicott made a comeback, came in third, and he was so close. Like he looked amazing. That was the best he's ever looked. And I know he's going to eventually get it. So, because now he knows his recipe, which was awesome. He was so ecstatic too. It was like so humbling and happy to see like one of my good friends, because Matt Berzicott is one of my really good friends, you know, do so well and be like so ecstatic about it. And then Matt had the bantamweight guy win. So there were 4 pro cards in Camp Jansen. And it was just a crazy weekend. Like, I mean, we got lucky. We almost swept the whole bodybuilding division. That would have been really cool.
Before we go any further here, Justin, because I want to get a little bit more insight in terms of you know, at nationals this past weekend. But before we do, I want to take a step back to the prep. So just for the listeners that are kind of curious, what was like the most cardio that you did during the prep leading up to nationals? And then just talk about how you kind of approach your training once you get really deep into prep. Again, more for just maybe some of the listeners that are a little bit curious. And then just stop there, and then I'll ask you a few things about nationals this last weekend.
Yeah. So the most my cardio got up to, so I will say this was the hardest I've pushed as far as like a prep goes. Because this is also the most conditioned I've been. So it was 45 minutes fasted with 35 minutes post-training. That was the most that my cardio got. And it was like that probably for most of the last 4 weeks between the regional and and nationals. You know, definitely, obviously, like my legs got really heavy towards the end, the way that everyone's do. Training wise, like I was trying to just keep the loads as heavy as possible. Like I always have. I always have been a high intensity, low volume trainer. So I was trying to stay strong for as long as I could. And then there came a point where it really flipped a switch, and I was just like, all right, the load is not there. And I need to make sure I'm managing fatigue as much as I can, because my food was getting lower, my cardio was high, and I didn't have the same recovery capabilities. So I wasn't taking as many sets to failure as I was prior, because prior it's every working set that I'm doing was to failure. I did a lot more. This is like the only time that I really do any RIR type training. So like reps in reserve. I would do like a 1 to 2 reps in reserve for a good chunk of my working sets, still making them challenging, but just leaving a little bit in the tank. So I wasn't emptying the tank on every single set the last 4 weeks, especially the last 3 weeks to like three to 2.5 weeks. Like that first week after the regional, I rebounded a little bit, got a little bit of food. That first week was great training. Then the rebound, I cleared that, and then it was like, okay, now like it's getting pretty hard again. And then it get progressively harder, harder. And so that was just like how I approached it. It was something I talked to with Matt, something I talked to with a couple of my friends that I also, top training with, that are way smarter than me when it comes to training. And that was what I just decided to go with. So same movements though, like for the most part, like all the movements really were the same. I changed a couple things because some of the way I was loading certain muscles was kind of redundant. It was like, this loads it the exact same way as this, so don't do both. It doesn't make sense. But besides that, I mean, that really was it. And now coming out of the show, I will do like higher rep ranges, not really high volume in the sense of work of sets. It'll just be like my working sets are higher rep ranges, still likely 1 to 2 reps in reserve. I'm not really going to be pushing anything till failure until, my tendons and joints and ligaments and everything like that are actually like fully recovered. Everything's back fully hydrated, because, it takes a lot more than just a couple of days of water to like fully, rehydrate your body. And then also give my body a little bit of a break too. Cause I mean, I just pushed myself since June till now, on a diet and training, not missing a single day. Most of this prep, I trained 6 days a week. So, which was the most that I've ever done. I've always been a 5-day a week trainer. Now, one of those 6 days was a 30-minute arm workout. So it wasn't super high stress, and it wasn't like crashing my central nervous system. But it definitely helped. Like, I think it helped keep some good shape and volume in my arms, which are not like a genetically good body part for me. So I was pleasantly, surprised and also happy with the results of that.
Excellent. So you brought up Jordan. Talk to me about balancing, having an athlete who's competing while you are also competing. Was this the first time that had happened? And then what are some things that maybe you learned going forward to make yourself a better coach when you are in that position or situation?
Right. So it's not the first time that I've like prepped and peaked an athlete on the same day that I'm competing. It was the first time that I've done so at the same show. So I've done so from a distance, which actually is a lot easier. Because I just do it on my phone. And so with him being with me though, obviously, like we needed to plan, like, okay, make sure you have X, Y, and Z food with you, because at moment's notice, your food could change. And a lot of times it did. From meal to meal, it was, what do I think your body needs right now? No, it was usually very minor and incremental changes, not anything wacky. But that was how we approached it. And so I pretty much told him, I said, if we get separated, because he didn't stay at the host hotel, he stayed at a different hotel, but I pretty much had him in my room like the whole weekend. I said, if you don't hear from me in 15 minutes after you send me something on WhatsApp, send me another message. And that, because I missed it, or my phone wasn't right next to me when it went off, so I didn't see it right away, or I was posing for Matt, or I was getting my tan, whatever. And that was a huge help. And then also just like super high level organization of have X, Y, and Z on you at all times. you're going to carry basically your fridge around with you, like your cooler, so that way you have the foods necessary. Now, I brought so much extra food that I wasn't really worried too much, because I knew, I was like, okay, I have you covered as far as food goes. Obviously, if I have more than one person competing with me, I'm not going to be able to do that. And so, but it was still relatively easy. I knew his body like the back of my hand. I knew exactly what to do with him, because I'd already peaked him once in the year for his regional. And he was only 5 pounds less than he was at that show. So he weighed 170 at that show, was a middleweight, and won the whole show. He won the overall. And then pulling him down to welters was a breeze. I mean, I kept him full pretty much all the way until like the 2-week out mark. And he was actually still dropping body fat. So I was like, we don't really need to do a water cut or a weight cut for you. You're just getting leaner. So that's why your body weight's going down. So this was the most conditioned that he's been. And like the best combination of like condition and fullness, because I've seen all of his competition photos. And the thing is like, I actually think I could have had him even a little bit better. I think I could have had him probably another 5% sharper. I know that I could have had him a little bit sharper from the back. Like more, definitely could have had lines in his glutes. And that's what our goal will be for his pro debut, which is going to be Puerto Rico Pro in 2023. So We've already said it. The reason we said it is because, in my opinion, like, a goal isn't a goal until you write it down. It's like a goal, a dream becomes a goal when you write it down, and it becomes a plan when you start to actually execute, or something like that. It's like a cliche, but I believe in it, and it works. And he's the exact same way, because we have a very much a yes sir, no sir type of like relationship. Now we bust chops quite a bit, but he's an ex-military guy. So he's very like regimented in I lay out the plan, and he's like, okay, I got it. So Perfect. He's like the dream client to work with, because it's just, military guys are the best people to work with, in my opinion.
All right, so we're gonna keep this this conversation a little bit shorter, but talk to me about how the events unfolded this past week. And you talked about Jordan. I want you to talk about yourself, your mindset, feelings, emotions. Talk about prejudging, how you felt after that, and then obviously talk about the nightcap and just everything after you knew you got that IFBB Pro card.
Yeah, so like in line, there were 30 of us at middleweights, and that's 5 more than what we're at USA's when I did it then. So it was the biggest class that I've ever competed in. And I will say this, there were some big boys back there. I was like, okay, I'm not the biggest guy back here. And it was like, you're sizing people up, whatnot. I honestly, I try not to do that, because you're standing relaxed. So it's like hard to really gauge condition when you're just standing there. And I'm just like, okay, I mean, like, it is what it is. Like, I'm going to have to go on stage and pose regardless. So it's like, what's the point in psyching myself out? So I don't really like do any of that really too much. If anything, I'm chatting and like just being personable with people backstage as much as I can, because that's like naturally who I am. So we're doing that, Jordan goes, I'm all jacked up. So now my adrenaline's like all crazy as I'm about to walk on stage. And I don't know if that helped or hurt me, but it was fine. I was able to compose myself easily, and get out there. So then when we did our first groups, we did our individuals, and then we did call outs. And so they call my number, which actually Steve goes in numerical order, and he starts calling numbers, and numerically he skipped me. So they said it went something, I was 465. It was like the numbers, they called 468. And I'm like, did I just not make first call out? And then he calls another number after him, and then throws 465. And I was like, holy smokes. I was like the second to last number that got called. So then I walk out there, we hit 1 front relaxed, and then he sends 2 guys back because he called out 8. So then now we're down to 6 people. So he's kind of just like whittling it down. We hit another front relaxed. We hit a front double. We hit 1 quarter turn. Then he asked us to face front. He moved me right to the center. And then he moved Mike Ferris, who came in second, like right next to me. And then they never looked at us again. Their eye, like Tyler and him were looking at, the guys over here, the guys over there. And when I got off stage and I was like, why? I don't understand. Why did they do that? And he was like, because they knew, like they knew right there. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense then. I'm sure they probably looked at us when we turned around, obviously, because that's really when you can gauge like condition. We had set a goal for being like the most conditioned guy in the show, and I would say that we got pretty darn close to achieving that, if not achieving it. There were some guys that were like really diced to the socks, but I think like top to bottom, front to back, like our conditioning everywhere was, was top notch. We had there were a couple of guys that won their pro cards in middles in the past, like David Patrick, and I don't think Santi won his as a middle. I think he won his as a welter, but he was another one that we looked at, and we like went back to their pictures the year they went pro, and we were like, okay, this is our goal. Like this is our goal conditioning, and I think we 100% achieved that. So we had a look in mind of like where we thought we needed to be, and that was what we did. But when I came off stage at prejudging, obviously I felt great because I'm split center, so I'm like, okay, I'm top two. Unless something cataclysmic happens, I'm pretty sure I got this. And so I walk off stage, Matt is like jacked up, gives me a huge hug, and I'm like, what do you think? And I was like, I think first or second? And he's like, oh, him and like the group that I have, and obviously Matt's not a yes man by any means. If he thought I was in second, he would have told me, but he was like, no, this is your show for sure. And that put everything at ease for me. Like I didn't need to hear from anybody else. Getting validation from him is like very hard. He's tough, which is what I like, because that's how I responded to all of my best coaches in the past. And I'm like football coaches, not the like pat you on the ass, like great job. You know what I mean? It's like he only will say great job, or I'm proud of you, or this is yours if like it's in the bag. He knows for sure, and you absolutely 100% earned it. So that was one of the most like gratifying feelings for me. And then when I had my trophy, my IFBB Pro card, and I walked out from finals and I found him, and I had like waited for that moment where like I could give him that big bear hug and just, hold on to him and be like, we did it. Like, because I look at Matt as like not so much like a brotherly figure, but more like a fatherly figure. He's older than me. I look up to him like both in a career sense as well as also in like the type of person he is. So that was everything for me.
What was it like competing in the overall, being up against some of those big legit dudes?
I laughed. So this is funny. So based off of like how they brought us out on stage, I got put center stage, like right in the X. And I literally said to Mike Condell, the guy that won light heavies, I go, I'm going to hold center for about 3 seconds. And so opened up 465. I went right to the far left. I was like, damn. I wanted to hit one shot in the middle. And it didn't matter though. It was just fun to be up there. Jordan was, I think, right next to me. So that was actually fun. And then in the overall, Mike and I posed a lot next to each other. We got really close backstage. Like we talked a lot, and I've actually known about him for a long time. He's a great dude, and we're going to definitely keep in touch and get together for some training. And so, we posed together. Shire got in some shots with us. It was really cool. And like, Mitch Gilbert and Will Whitman got some of like the most phenomenal videos and photos ever of that. So that was amazing. I wanted to get a picture of all 4 of us Camp Jansen guys together, like in the overall, but Shire was so close to winning the whole show. I was like, I even told him up on there, I was like, just keep following him around. I didn't want to take anything away from him. And so but being up there with like 2 monsters, I was like 3 monsters, because there were 3 guys that were good bit bigger than me. And I was like, these guys are on another level.
Excellent, man. All right. So we're going to wrap it up here. But before we do, Justin, so you said, how important it is to write something down in terms of a goal. So what have you written down in terms of your next goal in regards to competing in the IFBB?
Oh man, you're putting me on the spot here.
Of course, man. That's
I already,
job,
the thing
right?
is I already know what it is. I just wasn't ready to make it public yet, but I guess I might as well. So I'm from New York. My parents haven't seen me compete since 2016. They still live there. My parents actually just retired, both of them. So like, congrats and happy retirement to them. So I will be doing New York Pro in 2023, as long as there's no injuries or any, shutdowns or whatever, but that will be my plan. So I'll take all of 2022 off and I'll make sure that this is the best offseason that I have as far as muscle growth. And then just go up there and have fun. You know what I mean? No expectations for the pro debut, just have as much fun as I can and just continue to show up and get better. Like I'm only 27, so I would say I have every bit of at least 10 years left in my competitive career. So, I can put on some muscle in the next 10 years, I think. So that'll be fun. And I'm, excited to get back into the gym and like get big and strong again too, for sure. So that's the plan. I've written it down.
Cool. 2023 New York Pro. All right. Last question, and I'll let you go here, Justin. During this entire prep, this entire process, capped off by earning your IFBB Pro card, what's something that you learned about yourself? Maybe not necessarily about lifting weights or prep or bodybuilding, but just, is there something that you learned about yourself during this entire experience?
Yeah. I'm a lot mentally tougher than I thought I was. This has been like probably the most rewarding year of my life for the last 4.5, 5 months since I've moved to Florida. Has been incredibly rewarding for everything bodybuilding business. Prior to that, it was probably one of the hardest years of my entire life. And, I put this on my story today. I said, losing everything was probably the best thing that ever happened to me, because rock bottom is a great place to build a foundation. And that's it. That's really like, that's all I can really say that will sum up, 2021. I had hit rock bottom. It was the lowest that I'd ever been, and I didn't know what I was doing. I completely hit the reset button when I came down here, and by the grace of God, everything has really worked out. So I'm very lucky and just super grateful.
Amen, man. All right, dude. Where can anybody that doesn't know about you already find you on Instagram? And then any sponsors, any shout outs? You close us out.
Yeah. So you can find me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is J_Jacoby32. You can email me at justin@camp-jansen.com for any coaching inquiries. I have reopened my applications. I shut them down for a week just to focus on nationals. So I'm taking on plenty more. This is what I do full time. Just a quick shout out to Raw and Revive for helping me, cover some expenses, and also like just being like good people and giving me all of my supplements for the last couple of years, complimentary, and everything. They're great. I worked for the company as well, and they are they're some of the best people, obviously, Matt and Dom. So quick shout out to both of them. Shout out to Gina and Tommy, Dom's parents, who have been like another, set of grandparents for me. And everybody here in Florida, all the guys in the office, all the guys in the gym, Matt, Jordan, Dom, Sammy, Gina, Tommy, all of them, they have been integral parts of, my growth as a person, as a bodybuilder. So shout out to all of those guys.
Cool. All right, Justin, I appreciate you coming on, dude, giving us a little recap. I'm sure we'll have another episode or two next year just to kind of see what's up in terms of your off season. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, cool. All of you who are tuning into another episode of Behind the Muscle, we're just going to keep this wrap up short. I appreciate you. Take this episode, share it on your Instagram stories, tag Justin, tag Behind the Muscle. Again, thank you for tuning in to another episode. And per the usual, remember, behind the muscle, there's always a story. We'll catch you guys later.